What's up, suckers? It's me. I'm back. If you're wondering why it is that it looks like I'm videoing myself through a potato, it is because at this particular moment, my husband has COVID and he has taken over the bedroom. And yeah, so I am shooting this on my piece of shit Dell because what's more important than making sure we get this information out to you? Besides sleep. God, I need sleep. Anyway, I am here in another video out of my ADHD Nutrition series. This is number 2. As I've mentioned before, I have actually partnered with some really awesome nutrition experts who are able to help us out with understanding how this works, and we are working together on a referral basis. And I wanted to give a chance for you guys to get a chance to meet each and every one of these awesome people who I've gotten a chance to speak with. And today I am here with Niki Carr, who is such a gentle and awesome soul. Niki, hi, thanks for being here. And why don't you go ahead and just start out with kind of introducing yourself and talking about what got you into this and what you do and what your philosophy is, all that great stuff.
Thank you very much, Ariana, for having me, and I'm glad to be here. I'm Niki Carr. I practice at a wellness center named ANCORA Wellness in Hillsboro, Oregon, in the Portland metro area. My journey to nutrition has been long and winding, so I'll give you a very shortened version. I always enjoyed food and eating, and was like so tickled by the idea that we take sunlight and put it into our body for energy. It's kind of wild.
Like plants.
Yes. And then the animals and all the things. So it was just always fascinating to me. But I didn't really see it as a career path for me at first. But when I had my oldest child, they had severe eczema. And I went down this whole path of finding out what was going on with their skin, and discovered that a lot of it was diet and nutrition. And it kind of also opened me to a path of naturopathic medicine, because I was didn't have the best care and otherwise. And so just kind of opened me up to other alternatives. And so I moved to Oregon and I pursued a master's degree in nutrition, particularly from a naturopathic college, the National University of Natural Medicine. And while I was there, I learned a lot about how to use food as medicine and how to heal your body, and how to have food really kind of balance out some of the disease processes or imbalances in your body. And I practice from a health at every size standpoint. So I think that we all deserve access to good food and health, regardless of our body size or shape. And I don't push weight loss on folks or any particular diets in general. And I really take a personalized approach to make sure that I find what works best for your unique life, and that then we can actually implement it, because you're the expert on that. I may be the expert on food, but we got to work together to find what is right for you.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to be a health team. And I love that you talked about the personalization of nutrition, because it has been super fascinating kind of going through, my own journey. And I've shared that a little bit on TikTok and on Instagram, but I'm always really careful to make sure that I tell people, like, your mileage may vary. Like, this is working for me and this gives you a good place to start. But at the very end of this, I've mentioned this a couple of video ago, that at the very end of this, I'm going to be tying this all together with kind of giving everybody else more of a view of what I've been doing, and kind of telling them, what's been working for me, and kind of giving them the steps that they would need for ADHD meal planning, as well as hopefully a good list of some meals that they could start with. But that might work for some, that might not work for others, which is why, if this helps you, that's great, but please don't, listen to this and think, well, they're talking about, I don't know, cheese, and I don't eat cheese, so this must not work for me. That's not necessarily true. It could just mean that, you're going to have to take a more personalized approach. But my point being, as you're listening to this, everybody, please keep in mind that these are like general rules, general tips, but that there really is no normal. There's not one way. So take these and enact them if you can. And if you can't, try to look into other things that might work, or call Niki, or call me, or call one of us and we'll call each other. Doesn't really matter. It works very easily. So we talked a little bit about this beforehand together, and Niki especially has some amazing ideas about eating regularly. And the reason why I thought this would be a very important thing for us to discuss is because ADHD brains especially tend to forget to eat. We struggle with remembering to eat regularly, which sometimes can lend to our fatigue. It can lend to our lack of focus. It could lend to us feeling weak, numerous things like that. And so, Niki had some amazing tips on how to make sure that we get food into us regularly. So, Niki, can you please go into that a little bit? Like, talk about how you would suggest doing that.
Absolutely. Yes. I agree. It's very important to eat predictably and to eat regularly. And that helps our bodies to feel safe and our minds to stay focused. And when our blood sugar falls, some folks feel hunger, and hunger really feels different to everybody. So for some folks, they may feel it in their stomach. I'm not one of those people. I usually get a headache when I'm hungry. Some people feel tired. Some people feel kind of nauseous. Some people just all of a sudden can't focus. And for someone maybe with ADHD, it's hard to distinguish between lack of focus from something else and lack of focus from hunger. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's really important to eat regularly. And I think defining what hunger feels like to you is a process, and it may feel different on certain days. And I think particularly for someone who has ADHD or anxiety or depression or other feelings that maybe are a little uncomfortable in their bodies, they kind of learn to ignore those feelings, right? You push through, you got to keep focusing. And so it's really easy to make hunger and thirst just one of those feelings that we ignore. So, yeah, absolutely. So we have to make sure that we give ourselves the adequate nutrients and calories so then we can think straight and think clearly when it is time to eat, and we don't fall into that decision fatigue. So one of the things that I often ask folks to do is to really take advantage of the time of day where they have the best energy. So maybe you're like a mid-morning kind of person. Maybe you're an evening person, but basically taking that time when you have good energy and thinking for a whole 24 hours about meals. So for instance, at mid-morning, think about what are you going to eat for your snack and for your lunch and maybe for your dinner. And then what are you going to eat for breakfast the next morning, and have that all thought out and planned while you have good energy. And then that really helps because sometimes we're in that state of flow and we don't want to take a break and we just want to plow through. And, I can sometimes do that if I already know what my lunch is, because I don't have to spend that brain power thinking about my lunch, because I can just go grab it and sometimes even eat it while I'm still focusing. Because I want to kind of capitalize on that time of energy. And something else I think about is like, what does eating regularly mean? And that's going to look different for different folks. Typically like 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and maybe a snack or 2 or 3 in between, depending on your lifestyle, your metabolism, maybe what time of month you're in your cycle. Like all kinds of things can affect your eating. So practicing an attitude of curiosity instead of judgment when it comes to that, and just noticing. But 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks in between, and typically not waiting more than 4 hours in between meals, or at least doing a really thorough checking in.
Every 4 hours.
4 hours.
And
yes.
how would you define a check-in? What is a check-in?
Yeah, I like to do kind of what I consider like a body scan. So I think of like food. Have I eaten food lately? Do I need food now? I think, am I thirsty? Have I had water recently? Do I need to go to the bathroom? And I usually incorporate some kind of stretching or just movement, maybe just getting up and walking around the room a little bit. So it's food, water, bathroom, stretch. Those are my 4 things that I think of.
That's all so that's all stuff we can wind up kind of focusing through if we don't make the active, if we don't make the effort to make sure that we notice those things for sure. I have noticed a huge difference myself, just making sure that I schedule in breaks. And that's something that I'll go into a little bit further. But the thing that I did want to touch on that Niki brought up that's very important is, as you're listening again to these general rules, keep in mind that you may not fit something. And that's where that curiosity comes from, is this is not working for me. Why? And the example I'm going to give you is that I was trying to go off of the general breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks in between. And I eventually found that when I had that late day snack, the snack after lunch, it actually tended to make me feel kind of sick and fatigued. Like it never really worked out very well for me. I never really needed it to get to the end of my day. In fact, when I did do that, I generally tended to either eat things that didn't really help me out much, or again, I would eat and I would make myself like sick. So for me personally, it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and one snack. But for some people, it might be breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 3 snacks, or breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks, and a dessert, or, you know, breakfast, second breakfast, and second lunch, and tea time, and, you know, like whatever. So definitely when you're listening to this, you know, that was something I had to learn the hard way. So you have Niki to tell you this, which is great, because I wish I'd heard this then, because I was like, why am I constantly nauseous at the end of the day? Moment that I cut that second snack, I felt better. So, you know, just keep in mind that you definitely want to pay attention to yourself. And that may seem counterintuitive, because we always feel like if we take our focus off of what we're trying to focus on, we will lose that. But that could also wind up screwing us in the end, because then we haven't paid attention to how we're feeling, and we're going to lose that focus anyway. So,
yeah, I like to
let me know if I'm wrong on that.
No, absolutely. You're right on point. And I was going to say, like, approaching all of those body scans with like curiosity, right? Instead of judgment.
Exactly.
So just being like, that's interesting. I have to go to the restroom again, even though I just went. Like, I must be drinking plenty of water, and just curious about it, instead of being like, I'm hungry again, with like judgment, right?
Something must be wrong. Yeah.
It's just information, and, just really that attitude of curiosity towards it all. But I think, I try to recommend not going more than 4 hours, but sometimes for some folks that's too much also. Like maybe it's better to check in every hour or every 2 hours. So just kind of really depends, and also depends on the tasks that you're doing during that time. For me personally here, I usually see a client for 50 minutes, and then I have a 10-minute break, and then I have another client at the next hour. So I frequently get up every hour and I do a quick walk around, use the restroom if I need to, fill up my water, grab a snack if need be. So I have my check-ins are very close together, but when I'm at home, they're much farther apart, like 3 or 4 hours apart. So just finding that routine that works for you. That's all I have for that.
Do you generally tend to keep snacks like around, like easily reachable?
Yes, I'm like the person that's like, have a backup plan, and then have a backup plan for your backup plan. Yeah. So like I typically, I bring my lunch for work, and then I have like snacks in my bag, and then I usually have like an extra snack just in case, or if I need to go out and get a snack, that also is an option for me. But yes, absolutely. I tend to keep almonds with rosemary, and I can talk to you a little bit more about that why later.
Yeah, please. I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, but that's a great snack that I like to keep on hand. I'm a person that tends to get low blood sugar pretty easily. So like having things that are easy to digest that aren't going to spike my blood sugar is good for me. So like nuts. I also love some chocolate in the afternoon. That's a good pick me up. So
who doesn't love some chocolate? That's awesome.
Yeah. So I usually have all these different options around. Yes, I'm a snacker sometimes.
No, and that's awesome though. I think the term that people usually use when they're talking about kids that I actually really like is a grazer. That you tend to be, and that kind of goes back to that curiosity, seeing how it is that you eat. Some people are just like, I just need my meals, that's it. And some people are grazers. Some people are going to be like, I just prefer to eat throughout the day. So when you are trying to figure out what to eat, how exactly do you figure that out? Because you and I talked a little bit back and forth about, and I really liked this term, and I might have it wrong, but dopamine boosting foods, I think was the term. How do you generally figure that out, and what are some of those foods?
Yeah, so folks with ADHD are often like chronically low on dopamine. And so I find working with folks with ADHD often are using food to get a dopamine boost. And so there are foods that give you a dopamine boost, but kind of aren't so helpful in the long run. And then there are foods that actually support your body's natural production of dopamine. So I tend to lean towards those ones that are naturally going to help, instead of the ones that kind of demolish it. So some of the foods,
you so like much joy right away though,
Yes, it's true.
Right before they just leave you to fly too close to the sun, I'll Icarus, you just crash
Yes.
to the ground. Yeah. So what are some of the ones that actually support dopamine then?
Yeah, we're going to look for the amino acid called L-tyrosine. It is one of the building blocks for the production of dopamine in the body. So any foods that are high in L-tyrosine. So naturally, most of our animal protein is high in all the amino acids because it's protein. That's what you're eating.
Yep.
So any kind of lean meat, typically like turkey or chicken, shrimp, that kind of stuff. But do watch out for some processed meats because they might have some chemicals in it that might have an opposite effect, which we can talk about later. And something that can be really key for folks is to incorporate those lean proteins into breakfast. So like eggs are a great option there. Yes. And then I couldn't think of any more.
You're like, eggs are good. Yeah. And you know what? I read into the same, because it's funny you bring up the thing about the processed meats. I actually can't have processed meats because nitrates and nitrites give me migraines. So I can't do that. I miss bacon. I'm just gonna make that clear right now. But yeah, the eggs are a big thing too. And I'm constantly having people, well, have you tried Canadian ham? And I'm like, or Canadian bacon? And I'm like, is it processed? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I can't do that. So I kind of wind up with the same thing. I'm like, what should I have this morning?
Yeah, I have found some Canadian bacon that's nitrate free, but it's kind of hard to find and it's on the more expensive side. So eggs are a nice economical food for breakfast. Yes. And some of the other foods that you would find that boost dopamine would be like almonds are a great one. That's why I was talking about that almond snack earlier, and also apples and bananas, which these are kind of like those generic kind of lunchbox foods that we're used to having. So those are great options. They are sturdy. They'll hold up well in your bag. Avocados are a great source, and they're going to have fiber and some good healthy fats that are going to sustain you over time. And then beets and leafy greens. It's kind of a joke in my grad program. The answer to every ailment is leafy greens, but it's actually helpful in dopamine as well. So yeah, those are really good ones. And there's also some herbs that help support dopamine production. So rosemary and turmeric. And rosemary in particular is also known to like increase your focus. So for me in the afternoon, sometimes I get a little drowsy and I have these like rosemary almonds that just like get me super focused right away.
Do you make the rosemary almonds? Like you put the rosemary in with the almonds, or do you purchase it that way?
I purchase them that way, but a good nutritionist might say they make it, but
I was just gonna ask you to send me your recipe if you made it. That's all. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I did not know that. So rosemary is actually helpful for dopamine, and so is turmeric, which is also super fascinating because I have heard a lot about like breakfast shots, quote unquote, that include turmeric in them. Is that part of the reason that it's supposed to give you that kick because it kind of boosts that dopamine?
yeah, it can do that. And it's also just really anti-inflammatory. So sometimes that is what brings your energy down too, is just when you have a lot of inflammatory processes going on in the body. So I just want to make sure for that. And turmeric is really special. It is a great anti-inflammatory, but always pair it with a little bit of fat and black pepper because our body doesn't digest it very well, but black pepper has like an enzyme in it that helps boost its absorption.
I feel like I'm going to tomorrow try to make a leafy green smoothie with turmeric and black pepper and some avocado. And I'm going to be like, let's see how this goes. I've got to say, let's do this.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah. And then, I'll either write you up and be like, I feel like I'm on jet fuel. Or I'm going to be like, Niki, I haven't pooped in 2 days.
That's great.
No, but that's absolutely amazing. Okay. Definitely. We want to make sure that we are looking at foods that are going to help with that dopamine production. And are there any like treats, any snack foods that tend to work that way that are more helpful, or should we be avoiding, most of the snack foods that might do that?
I was going to say that having complex carbohydrates or those like whole grains are also really good. And so having like a baked good or a treat that has whole grains in it and like relatively low sugar and like a higher fiber content is
Mhm.
going to help us get some of that energy, but not like a spike, right? It'll be more sustained.
Okay.
So that's really important. And like oatmeal is also a dopamine increasing food, and that can, be made into some sweeter treats too. And it's another option for breakfast.
Yeah. It's really
Um,
good.
yeah, and another really important food, it's not a treat at all, I think, but some people get really into it, but fermented foods. And
I'm sorry, I forgot I was being recorded. No, my husband loves fermented foods, actually. He's huge on like kimchi and fermented
Mhm.
stuff like that. So he wouldn't have made that face, but I was just thinking like, oh no. Oh
That's why I
no.
said it's not a treat for everybody. But the majority of our neurotransmitters, and dopamine is a neurotransmitter, they're produced in our gut. So having a healthy microbiome is really an important process in regulating the production of dopamine. So having fermented foods, like you mentioned, kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, you can even do like your own fermented yogurt.
Mhm.
And then that's another option for breakfast of that lean protein as well. So taking care of your gut health is going to help your dopamine production as well.
Is that generally something that you would want to have, a certain number of times a day, or does that basically also depend on the person?
I think it depends on the person. And some folks just prefer to take like a probiotic. But if you like fermented foods, incorporate them in as liberally as you would like. If it's something you're learning to like, maybe just once or twice a week, you know?
I'm not letting him hear this. I don't want, he's gonna start slipping kimchi into my cereal. Um,
That
but
sounds like something I would do.
great. No, no cereal at Niki's house. So we're running out of time. This has been absolutely amazing and so eye-opening. I feel like I have learned so much from you just in this short amount of time. Before we go, can you please let everybody know, like we're still going to have these links in the description and everything, but would you mind letting everyone know how they can get a hold of you or keep up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to reach me is probably by email. It's Niki, Niki, at ANCORAwellness.com. You can also check us out on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm the one who does all the food puns. So you'll see those posts. And yeah, emailing me is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
If that description does not automatically make you want to talk to Niki, I'm the one who does all the food puns, like right there, that needs to just be your tagline. That right there, like makes me go, you need to, like, how can you not? I love that. But thank you so much. I'm gonna have to let you know how that smoothie goes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching or listening, wherever you guys are. If you need me or Niki, please be sure to reach out. All links are in the description. Drink some water, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video or on the next podcast episode.